An ailing mansion, a respectable doctor, and a family on the brink. What could go wrong? Beat. Step inside Hundreds Hall, where every creak may be telling the truth. A decaying estate and a curious doctor, Dr Faraday, first visits Hundreds Hall on a languid summer day in 1947, summoned to treat a maid who claims to be merely ill, but is, in truth, terrified of the house itself. Beat. Once a grand estate where Faraday's own working-class mother served, Hundreds now stands weather-worn, its paint peeling like old scabs, and its gardens choked by weeds. Beat. Faraday, a man of science and post-war emphasis modernity, is captivated by the house's faded elegance and by its owners. Mrs. Ayres, proud yet exhausted, her war-scarred son Roderick, and her gentle daughter Caroline, whose plain features cannot hide a quietly fierce intelligence. The doctor's interest is not purely medical. Beat. Each room seems to whisper to him of a vanished Edwardian past he once idolized as a poor village boy. He begins regular visits under the pretext of treating Roderick's burn-damaged leg and nervous tremors. Beat. As he applies ointments and electric therapy, he grows intimately involved in household matters, even advising on finances and repairs. Faraday's narration insists on rational explanations, yet hints of unease surface. Roderick confides that the house is hostile, its moods palpable. His bedroom lights flicker, items move, and unseen hands tug his bedsheets. Beat. Faraday diagnoses stress. But Roderick's dogged attempts to catalogue the phenomena, scribbled notes, burnt photographs, feel less like hysteria than data from the front lines of an invisible siege. Beneath the doctor's clinical tone lies something darker: envy. Beat. Hundreds represents a world he believes he deserves after years of study and wartime service. The boundary between healer and would-be heir blurs, planting the seed for the novel's central conflict, class aspiration meshed with the uncanny. Beat. While Faraday prescribes rest and rationality, the house begins prescribing dread. By the end of this section, we sense the first vibration of a Gothic string. The past is not dead, and Faraday's presence may be the catalyst that wakes it. Echoes in the walls. The hauntings intensify. Soon the subtle oddities gather into undeniable incidents. Beat. During a genteel cocktail evening, a small mirror shatters in Mrs. Ayres's hand, slicing skin as though the glass had been hurled by unseen force. Bells installed for long-dismissed servants jangle at night. A scorch mark blooms across Roderick's floor in the perfect outline of a body. Beat. Caroline, ever practical, tries to laugh it off, but her eyes follow every corridor corner. Roderick's mental state deteriorates, culminating in a violent episode where his room appears ransacked from within. The family coroner and local police can only speculate. Beat. Faraday arranges for Roderick's commitment to an asylum, convinced psychosis is the culprit. Yet in the doctor's careful recounting, readers glimpse what he refuses to accept. Footprints in soot that stop mid-stride, doors locked from the inside, the smell of ozone after each incident. Beat. The evidence is both physical and impossible. Waters paints the haunting with exquisite restraint. The terror emerges not from jump scares, but from the dreadful etiquette of English country life, where screams must be muffled by politeness. Beat. Mrs. Ayres keeps hosting village fetes, offering tea while plaster dust drifts like ash. Caroline's attempts to sell off acres of land or engage in pragmatic repairs are thwarted by creditors and social expectation. The spectre seems tied to the family's grief, particularly Susan, Mrs. Ayres's beloved first daughter, who died of diphtheria decades earlier. Child-size marks appear on walls, A nursery bell rings at 2 a.m. A childish voice repeats, "Mama," through the old speaking tube. Beat. Faraday dismisses it as mass hysteria stirred by post-war anxiety. Yet the text lingers on his childhood memory of stealing a souvenir acorn from hundreds during a 1919 Empire Day fete. Could that tiny act of trespass have invited a larger one? By the section's close, the house feels animate, its pulse synchronized with the family's despair. The question is no longer whether something walks the halls, but whether Faraday himself is the vector. Beat. Waters balances the emphasis, uncanny, on the razor's edge of skepticism, enticing us to trust neither ghost nor narrator. The family unravels rationality versus superstition. With Roderick institutionalized, the emotional architecture of Hundreds Hall collapses. Beat. Mrs. Ayres drifts through her days like a sleepwalker, obsessing over the past. Caroline shoulders the estate's mounting debts, selling furniture and dismissing staff until only a part-time maid remains. Beat. Faraday steps deeper into the breach, proposing regular dinners and car rides to distract Caroline, positioning himself as savior. An uneasy courtship blossoms. Faraday admires Caroline's stoic humor and practical mind, while she sees in him a lifeline to a future beyond crumbling walls. Beat. Yet every time affection surfaces, the house counterattacks. A phonograph hisses static, then plays Susan's favorite lullaby. Windows flung wide refuse to shut, as though Hundreds refuses to release its last heirs. Waters explores post-war British class tension through these haunting episodes. Faraday, the self-made professional, believes in social mobility. The Ayreses cling to a fading gentry ideal. Beat. Their dynamic turns parasitic. He needs their approval to validate his upward climb. They need his modern solutions to stave off ruin. The ghost, if it exists, feeds on this mutual dependency. Caroline tentatively agrees to marry Faraday, but joy melts into dread at their engagement party, where a shriek draws guests to the portrait gallery. Beat. Mrs. Ayres is found bloodied, the walls scrawled with childish writing. She is mine. She later takes her own life, convinced Susan's spirit wants the family reunited in death. The tragedy fractures Caroline's trust in the rational. Faraday doubles down on empirical certainty, arranging inquests, persuading himself and the coroner that depression explains everything. Beat. Yet his narration begins to slip. He records hearing his own name whispered in the empty surgery, noticing tiny bite marks on the sill where the acorn once lay. The divide between logic and superstition becomes more than thematic. It is a tug-of-war for Faraday's soul. By the close, the house, the doctor, and the last heirs stand at a precipice where belief itself will dictate survival. Beat. In this section, the emphasis duality of reason and faith turns lethal. Revelation and ambiguity. The unsettling end. Winter drapes Hundreds Hall in fog, muffling the world to a single icy breath. Beat. Wedding plans stall as Caroline grows withdrawn, convinced the house, or something born within it, will not let her go. One bleak December night, she announces her intent to sell the estate, cancel the marriage, and flee to London. Beat. Faraday is devastated. The castle he coveted slips away like a mirage. He drives to Hundreds to reason with her. Their final conversation crackles with heartbreak and stubborn pragmatism. Caroline pleads for understanding, while Faraday insists she is succumbing to delusion. Beat. Leaving her at 11:30 p.m., he assures himself she will come to her senses. Hours later, Caroline is found dead on the gravel drive, her skull fractured in a fall from the nursery balcony. The only footprints in the snow belong to her, The inquest rules accidental death. Faraday revisits every room, measuring balustrades, calculating angles, hunting for rational clues. Beat. He hears faint thuds, glimpses a figure in the corner of his eye, feels a tightening in the very walls. Yet he cannot, will not, name it. His narration trembles, but never breaks. Some breach has been made. He muses, then corrects himself, blaming faulty architecture. Years pass. Hundreds, hall stands empty, windows boarded, the estate finally repossessed. Faraday continues to visit, letting himself in with a key he never surrendered. Beat. He imagines renovations, new wiring, a bright future, but the plaster buckles at his touch. In the silent staircase mirror, he sometimes sees a blurred reflection, features elongated, smile too wide. Something like himself, yet not. The final lines suggest he may be the house's latest prisoner, or its very engine, an unconscious poltergeist born of desire and resentment. Beat. Waters leaves readers suspended between psychological and supernatural readings, ensuring the emphasis on ambiguity haunts long after the last page.